Today, a Redditor shares a story of how they messed up by peeing in the pool. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, today I messed up by not listening when the server asked, "Are you sure?" So my family started a new tradition for birthdays once the youngest of us aged out of the cake and presents type of birthday celebration. Now, the birthday person picks something for the family to do together. My sister likes museums and zoos, and I like to try new cuisines. A few years ago, I picked a Vietnamese restaurant. I'd had Vietnamese before and enjoyed the dishes we tried, so I wanted to try some more. The restaurant I picked had bamboo shoot soup on the menu with duck on the side. I'd never tried either of those, so that's what I ordered. The server gave me a look and asked, "Are you sure?" Y'all, I didn't get the hint. None of us did. I just nodded and said yes. They hesitated for a second, but put the order in, probably thinking, well, it's your own fault. Now, I'm in the US. My only exposure to bamboo in food is the little rectangular strips that are everywhere in Asian restaurants, so that's what I thought I was going to get. It very much wasn't. They looked something like miniature stalks of bamboo. It smelled pretty good, so I was in no way expecting the taste that hit me when I took a sip. The only way I can think of to describe it is the soup tasted the way a zoo smells. It was very earthy, bitter, and strong. I get the feeling it's one of those flavors that you either love or you hate, or you enjoy it if you grew up with it. I fell into none of those categories. The rest of my family tried a sip and all had the same reaction. We suddenly understood why the server asked, "Are you sure?" We owned the mistake. I ate the duck, which was alright on its own, and tried a few bites of the other dishes my family members had gotten. We took the soup home and tried desperately to change the flavor to something at least one of us would enjoy and be able to finish off. It was futile. We regretfully ended up throwing the soup away. Lesson learned. And yes, we did still tip well. It wasn't the server's fault we only had one brain cell amongst the 5 of us. Am I wrong in saying that I find it crazy that OP had to go out of their way to make sure they mentioned they still tipped them well? I mean, what was the server supposed to do? Not just say, "Are you sure?" but explain exactly why they wouldn't like that bamboo shoot soup? Slam their hand down on the menu and be like, "You do not want to order our food." Maybe I'm wrong, but a simple, "Are you sure?" is probably more than enough to suffice, or lead you to ask a follow-up question that would get you more information. Travel Girl commented, "I was in a restaurant on the Ile de la Cité in Paris that was famous for its andouille, and I figured, I like the New Orleans andouille sausage, so why not?" The very kind French waiter got a worried look on his face and said, "That dish is very special." And when I looked undaunted, he emphasized, "Very, very special." And I knew I shouldn't order it. He recommended the white boar stew, and it was fantastic. He prevented me from ordering tripe, and I'm forever grateful. S.A. Terp replied, "My wife made a mistake in ordering at a French restaurant on the island of Guadeloupe on our honeymoon. She looked at it and said to me, 'I don't really want this. Do you want to eat it?' I looked at it, and it sure looked like a hunk of veal, so I said sure and ate it. It was riz de veau, aka sweetbreads, aka calf thymus gland, which I didn't find out until later. Actually, it wasn't bad, but I've always thought there was a little betrayal of trust there, especially after she confessed she had her suspicions when she saw it. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of how Redditors severely messed up, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, "Today I messed up. I drank a pint of prune juice with my breakfast and I've been stuck on the toilet for over an hour. How long will this last? Why are they allowed to sell this as a freaking normal fruit juice drink along with all the other normal juices? Why isn't there a warning label or prescription required? Our food shipping got delivered and they didn't have beetroot juice in stock, so they swapped it with prune juice? I opened it this morning and drank half a pint glass and thought, that's nice. Maybe I'll have another. Now it sounds like World War III is happening in my stomach. In my near 40 years on this planet, I have never heard my body make these noises. I literally feel I'm being turned into liquid like that guy from X-Men 1. I have so much to do today and I have a flight to catch tomorrow. Has anyone else made this mistake? When will this end? Update, made the flight and didn't make a mess in my pants. Back to a normal consistency and I've regained full control over my bum. Prune juice review, taste 7 out of 10, consistency 8 out of 10, laxative effects 10,000 out of 10, chance of drinking it again 0 out of 10. Now, I don't think I've ever tried prune juice. but I feel like I've heard of it referenced for one of two things, which is either helping you go to the bathroom or for some reason for UTIs. Ain't my fault OP drank the UTI poop juice. NYCat commented, they didn't have beetroot juice in stock, so they swapped it with prune juice. Whoever was in charge that day is an unreal kind of evil chaos. Our next story is, today I messed up by becoming part of a pug assassination cover-up 15 years ago and still thinking about it. So, about 15 years ago, me and a group of young idiots rented this nice suburban house from a sweet retired widow named Gigi. She had just lost her husband and was about to spend a year in Europe finding herself. Along with trusting us with her home, she trusted us with her beloved ancient pug named Buddy. Now, context, I was the only semi-functional human in the group. Every other guy was a massive pothead. Our nightly ritual was chain-smoking weed on the back porch, downing at least 2 bottles of whiskey between us, and letting Buddy roam the yard at 2 a.m. where he would unleash banshee screams into the night sky. And I'm not exaggerating, this dog didn't bark, he shrieked like a haunted accordion being stepped on by Satan. We would just sit there drunk, toasting each other while he howled at passing clouds. At the center of our little circus was Brad. Brad wasn't like the rest of us. He didn't shout, he didn't get sloppy, and he had this calm monk-like vibe. He would sit cross-legged on the porch, joint in one hand, whiskey glass in the other, whispering philosophical nonsense like, "In chaos there is harmony, my brothers." We half-joked that Brad was our group's messiah, our gentle leader who never raised his voice but somehow always got the final say. So when Brad decided Buddy's time had come, he didn't storm around or rant, he just quietly took Buddy to the vet one morning like he was guiding him to the River Jordan. No announcement, no discussion. When I got home and saw the empty dog bed, Brad looked up at me with those calm eyes and said in the softest voice, "Don't freak out, but Buddy's gone." I did the humane thing. It was like being told by Jesus that he personally handled your taxes. The absolute serenity in his tone made it worse. Then came the real kicker. Brad called Gigi in France. He delivered the news like a priest giving last rites, gentle, reassuring, drenched in compassion. He told her Buddy passed peacefully in his sleep surrounded by love. She sobbed, thanked him, and said he was like the son she never had. Meanwhile, the rest of us were in the background choking on bong smoke, trying not to scream, "He Thanos snapped your dog, Gigi!" So for months, every email from Gigi was heartbreaking stuff like, "I miss my little buddy, but knowing he was cared for makes it easier," and we all had to play along. Meanwhile, the house was still anything but peaceful. Stoners screaming at Mario Kart, whiskey bottles clinking, and Buddy's ghost shrieking through the rafters. But here's the kicker of all kickers. Before Gigi came back from Europe, everyone except me decided to just stop paying rent, pack up, and bail. One day, the house was full of smoke, noise, and empty bottles. The next, it was silent and abandoned. We left behind Gigi's furniture, her pictures on the wall, everything, and none of us ever heard from her again. So, in the end, Brad didn't just Thanos snap her dog. Our entire group Thanos snapped her house, her trust, and her entire year-long plan. It's been 15 years and I still hear Buddy's banshee scream in my head sometimes, usually when I'm trying to fall asleep. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever taken the time or just happened to come across a video where a pug is barking. I say that in air quotes. Most of them, God bless them, because of the way they were invented in a lab, these poor freaks of nature, they can't even bark properly. They just kind of scream like a banshee. They wail. Some of them literally sound like a little kid just wailing because they're upset they can't go to Chuck E. Cheese today. Our next story is, today I messed up by greatly misjudging edible portions. I thought today I would make my own edibles after using bot gummies for the first time. I cooked my herb in a vaporizer since, despite it being legal here, I could get kicked out of my accommodation for stinking it up. But apparently this preserves a huge percentage of THC compared to cooking. I used like 1.5 grams leaf to make a single edible, thinking, that's the weight smoked for a single person. But my God, that was a mistake. After some retrospective research, I've realized this cooking method could leave nearly 270 milligrams of the high chemical THC, and for reference, 5 to 10 milligrams is supposed to be enough to get a single person extremely high. I've got a really high genetic tolerance. It took me 50 milligram gummies to feel anything the first time without smoking before, but this left even me destroyed. For like 4+ hours straight, I was bedridden in mental agony and couldn't even move without throwing up, and it felt like an eternity with every second stretching out from the effects of the drug. Genuinely one of my worst life experiences despite it being so short. If you're going to make your own edibles and are new, please do your research. Don't be an idiot like me and put yourself through what I did. You know, probably about 10 years ago, I had a relative of mine who had their own stuff, and they were trying to make something out of it, and for whatever reason, they like threw some remains out in the backyard or something. Turns out, our dog ate it. For the rest of the night, that dog was absolutely still just laying on a relative's bed, and they may or may not have peed the bed too. I mean, I can only imagine what that dog was experiencing. Dog Parks Are Forbidden commented, I'm in Canada, I smoke wax and diamonds and regularly take 100 milligram edibles. Well, until my fiance gave me one of her homemade gummies. She said it was less potent than my 100 milligram bears, but she clearly mistook how much she put in what she made. I still have no idea what the real dose was, but I've never been so high in my entire life. 6 hours for me. 6 hours of racing heart, indecipherable thoughts, fuzzy vision, etc. It was the worst. I was almost blacking out, never taking another edible in my life. Our next story is, today I messed up by taking my kid to the ER. My 16-year-old son started on a new medication. I got a phone call from his doctor informing me that a rash is a very rare but very serious side effect of this medication. She said, if he develops any rash of any kind, you need to take him to the ER. She said if I told them the name of the medication, they would immediately rush him in and treat him. So a few days later, he shows me a rash on his neck. It also happened to be the day he was instructed to take a higher dose of the med. It didn't look bad, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I rushed him to the ER as instructed. They didn't seem alarmed when I told them the name of the medication, but eventually he was seen by a physician who barely looked at him and said, "Dude, you've got razor rash." My son was so embarrassed and not happy with me at all. I am mortified, but I just did what his prescriber told me to do. The ER doc said the prescriber was just covering their butt. My poor kid. Look, OP's not gonna win any, Parent of the Year awards from their kid here, but, let's be real, the doctor or the prescriber said, this is very dangerous, they may explode at the mere presence of a rash. Take them to the ER immediately or else just start saying your goodbyes. OP did what they were told to do. OP was looking out for their kid. Embarrassing, sure, but completely understandable. What do you do next? Commented, doesn't sound like a freak up at all. Your son's doctor said to go to the ER if he has a rash, and your son showed you a rash on his neck. Without knowing that it was a razor rash, what were you supposed to do? Don't beat yourself up, you did the safe thing. Now your son knows that shaving can irritate the skin. He'll learn with time how to minimize that, but to be honest, it will still happen. This next story is, today I messed up by microwaving my fork. Today I managed to do one of the dumbest things possible. I microwaved a fork. I was reheating some leftovers during lunch and didn't realize I'd left the fork on the plate. About 15 seconds in, the microwave started snapping and flashing. I ran over just in time to see actual sparks bouncing off the fork like it was conducting lightning. The noises coming from the microwave did not sound healthy, and for a second, I thought I was about to be responsible for burning down the entire office. When I yanked the door open, the fork was scorching hot. I grabbed it without thinking and immediately burned my hand like a complete idiot. Now I've got a nice red mark forming, the microwave smells like burnt wiring, and everyone in the office knows exactly who nearly set the break room on fire. So yes, I'm officially that person who almost blew up the microwave with a fork, Harry Potter scar on my hand pending, and my food still cold. You know, this story reminds me one time of when food was made for me and there were some leftovers, and without thinking, I went and got the leftovers, and they were still in the pot it was made in, which is clearly a metal pot, and I stuck it in the microwave and turned it on for some reason without thinking. And only when I started hearing psh, 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 did I think, oh crap, yeah, it's a metal pan. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens. The worst is when you find out that a cup isn't microwavable because secretly there's metal underneath it. That happened to me one time too. I was trying to make microwave hot chocolate and I put a mug that I thought was ceramic in the microwave, and immediately it starts sparking and the paint job is ruined and it looks like, well, lightning hit it all around the outside. Scribe625 commented, "A friend of mine did this twice in high school and destroyed 2 microwaves, then put a foil-wrapped sandwich in her dorm microwave. She lost all microwaving privileges after that, so please learn from this first freak up and don't be that person again." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by angrily telling 2 women at the movies to stop using their phones. For whatever reason, I always end up next to the person who wants to talk, ask their friend what's happening, take 5 minutes to open a bag of candy, repeatedly check their phone, sit and text message for the whole thing, whatever. It drives me nuts and takes me out of the moment. I try to ignore it and typically don't say anything, but this time, it was literally the person right in front of me on their phone, full brightness, eye level, and kept happening over and over. So, in the deepest, most guttural voice I could manage, I leaned forward and whispered angrily, 'Put your phone away.' They immediately put the phone away and never used it again. 10 or so minutes later, the person next to them brought their phone up and did the same thing. I leaned in again and even more sternly whispered, 'Put your phone away.' The phone immediately goes down. No more phones for the rest of the movie. But at the end of the movie, the lights come up, and it turns out this was a group of about 20 developmentally disabled adults out on a field trip to watch a movie. The looks of fear these 2 women had looking over at me while their caretaker gathered them all up broke me. Ugh, I felt horrible. Like, look, there's no way OP could have known, right? And I suppose you could also argue that OP was still ultimately doing a good thing, kind of trying to teach these people that they can't just use their phone blatantly in the movie theater. If anything, shame on their caretakers for allowing such a thing to happen. Now, I don't know these people's conditions, but if it's a possibility, shouldn't they have rounded up the phones beforehand so that they're not going to do that to innocent other people just trying to watch the movie? Slade797 commented, "Did you treat these people that way because they were developmentally disabled? No? Then you did nothing wrong. You treated them as peers, as equals, which they are." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by forgetting how old my crush at work actually is." This happened recently and I'm still cringing every time I blink. So I, female 28, started a new job a few months ago and quickly hit it off with this guy, Jake. He's funny, super smart, laid back in that unbothered but capable way, and dangerously good looking. He works in a different department, so we only interact here and there, but there's been undeniable friendly chemistry. Anyway, we started chatting more regularly, sharing Spotify playlists, joking around in work chats, bonding over our mutual hatred for open office plans and lukewarm microwave lunches. I caught myself looking forward to his messages a little too much. I won't lie, I started to develop a bit of a crush. Fast forward to yesterday, we were in the break room talking about movies. I mentioned how The Matrix blew my mind when I saw it as a kid. Jake goes, "Wait, when did that come out again?" Me casually replying, 1999. Jake laughing, replying, "Oh dang, I wasn't even born yet." I froze. I blinked. I did the mental math like I was trying to defuse a bomb. I said, "Wait, how old are you?" Jake replied, "I just turned 19 last month. I'm 28. I was reading Twilight when he was learning to read. I was getting my learner's permit when he was still trying to ride a bike. I was paying off student loans when he was finishing high school." I think I blacked out for a second because he asked me if I was okay and I just kind of nodded and mumbled something about sudden back pain. He still smiled at me like nothing was weird, but now every time I see him, my brain screams, "Illegal!" even though it's technically not. But emotionally, spiritually, existentially, I feel like I should be dropping him off at soccer practice, not flirting over Slack. So now I've been avoiding eye contact like he's the sun and I'm a vampire, and I'm spiraling about whether this is just a dumb crush or an early sign of a midlife crisis. Yeah, this is a pretty awkward situation. You know, in the eyes of the law, everything is kosher here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you both consent to it, Ultimately, there's nothing truly wrong, but I do think most people nowadays definitely identify that there's something kind of icky about the idea of somebody in their teens dating a 28-year-old. Doubly so when you do what OP did and you think about where you were in life when the other person was at a much lower stage of life. Like, I don't want to sound old, but it kind of breaks my brain that somebody born in 2007 can be 18 years old. Upbeat John Doe commented, "My girlfriend is 12 years older than me. When we met, I was 22 and she was 34. We've been together 9 years now. Her brother and I are the exact same age, born on the same day of the same year. She mentioned that she could have seen me in the hospital when she was looking at her brother in the ward where all the babies are behind the class. If you don't care what other people think, then go for it. I'm sure if he's interested, then he won't care about the age gap. He might even be into it." Our next story is, today I messed up by paying 200 British pounds to crap on a volcano. So tonight I forked out 200 pounds for what was supposed to be this magical stargazing trip up a volcano. The plan, ride a coach to the top, look through the fancy telescopes at the stars, moon, planets, all very romantic. About an hour in, my stomach decides it's time to play Russian roulette. Absolute knots. By the time we get up there, 60 plus people pile off the coach to enjoy the view, and I'm curled up in agony refusing to move. No toilet in the coach, no toilets up there either. Shorts with netting, no boxers, no wipes, no toilet roll, the full nightmare package. Fast forward 3.5 hours, I haven't moved an inch. A tour guide finally notices I'm basically dying and hands me baby wipes. They point me towards some volcanic rocks in the pitch black. The ground's literally crumbling under me while I squat down and unleash a crime scene. Somehow, my shoes survive, but as I'm wiping, my hand goes straight through and lands in the fresh pile of wet regret. Meanwhile, my girlfriend standing next to me in the dark, absolutely howling with laughter at my misfortune. So, yeah. Long story short, I paid 200 pounds to crap on a volcano, swipe my own hand through it, and then just get back on the coach. Now, here's the thing. OP's girlfriend was with them, witnessed that whole thing, probably didn't get to enjoy the romantic stargazing night that I'm assuming she wanted to have, literally stood next to you while you were defecating on this volcano, and came out of it laughing. I call that a win and a memory for the both of you. Smecky01 commented, "Your girlfriend makes this whole thing amazing. If she's there for you through volcanic diarrhea, then she'll be there for you always." OP responded commenting, "Yep, I kinda feel bad because it ruined it for her too. She didn't want to leave me on my own. We was in this crap together." Our next story is, today I messed up by peeing in the pool the wrong way. Once again, this happened when I was younger, not today. I'm making an effort to tell more of my dumb childhood stories that I'm reminded about. So when I was younger, I had to learn to swim as everyone does. So when I would attend swim lessons at a class with other boys and girls, as probably most kids did, the pool had a little seating area for parents to see their kids during lessons. I had some friends at the class, and generally I was pretty okay at swimming apparently, so all was good. However, a couple of weeks into starting the class is when the problem arose. During one of the lessons, partway through, I developed an urge to pee. Every time before that, I would ask to use the bathroom and leave the pool, but I guess I didn't this time. I didn't want to for whatever reason, so I complained to one of my friends about having to get out and go, to which he told me to just pee in the pool. I was skeptical as I'd never done it before, but he assured me everyone does it, so it doesn't matter. So I thought, screw it. I hadn't seen anyone do it before, but why would he lie? So I did what I had to do, except it wasn't. Because I got out the pool, and then I stood right at the edge of the pool and dropped my pants. My idiot child brain assumed that peeing in the pool meant peeing into the pool from the outside. So that's exactly what I did, with my swim shorts down, in front of the entire class and the spectators. I started peeing into the pool. Very quickly, everyone noticed, with many screaming and saying ew and the swim instructor shouting at me to stop. But the thing about it is it was impossible to stop midway, so as I'm trying to stop, I just continue peeing until I'm finally finished. I was then very quickly escorted out of the lesson and back to my parents, who saw the whole thing and were also very upset. I got in loads of trouble, and when I returned the next week, the class kept bringing up the incident for a while afterwards, but it's a funny story to look back on now. Now, I will not go on the record about whether or not I've peed in the pool, but I will say I am concerned, however, about how often a public pool that I've swam in has been urinated in by another person. I mean, let's put it this way. How many times have you gone to the bathroom and you've seen somebody walk in, do their business, and walk out without ever having washed their hands? Is it really so crazy to believe that it's not beneath a person cut of that cloth to go right ahead and freely pee in the pool? Big Fops commented, "Famous family story about my brother at the beach. Same situation, but he just walked up to the edge of the water and did it in front of everyone swimming. Apparently my dad turned away and said, 'Not my kid.'" Our next story is, today I messed up by trusting a wedding guest with an iron at the venue. Our wedding was amazing, ceremony, the dancing part, all perfect, but of course something had to go wrong. One guest decided to iron their outfit in the bridal suite. Instead of using an ironing board, they left the hot iron face down on the linoleum floor. Cue the smell of burning plastic, followed by a giant scar right in the middle of the room. Venue manager saw it and immediately said the whole section has to be replaced. And yep, guess who gets the bill? Us. Right after dropping all of our savings on the wedding itself. The day was beautiful, except for the part where my wallet now has to buy the venue a new floor. I'm sorry, but the problem here is inviting the person who was dumb enough to leave a hot iron on the floor. I still remember as a kid, one of my older siblings had the bright idea of putting the hot iron down on the kitchen table. And for as long as we had that kitchen table, there was just a giant black iron-shaped mark right on the surface of that table. They also went out of their way to try to blame me for them having to do that. Like I somehow caused them or coerced them into doing so. Maybe I was choking on an Oreo or something. Our next story is, today I messed up, she had/has an affair. Background, I never suspected her of cheating. It honestly never crossed my mind. She's 32, I'm 34, and we have twin daughters who are 3 years old. A few months after they were born, I left to work abroad because I had no career prospects at home and we were struggling financially. We weren't starving or anything, but saving up for an apartment would have taken forever. I started working 60 hours a week abroad, living with a roommate, cooking as much as I could, sending money home, and saving everything else. She quit her old job because of night shifts, stress, and childcare responsibilities. I even helped her find a job at the front desk of a gym just so she could have some extra income. Everything seemed fine. I earned the trust of my boss, got a small raise, and things were looking up. What happened? Then one of my good friends reached out to me. He told me he had stumbled upon a second Instagram account of hers. The username was basically her first name, no surname, locked profile with over 2,000 followers. At first, I didn't believe him. He sent me screenshots of pictures and stories posing provocatively, dressing in revealing clothes, etc. I thought maybe it was a fake profile, but it looked too real. After talking it over with him, I decided to return home immediately. I finished my Friday shift, packed up, and drove back from Germany to my country. On the way, I texted her that I was coming. She was surprised, but didn't seem suspicious. When I got home late at night, she welcomed me normally like nothing was wrong. The next morning, while she was distracted with scrolling, I took her phone and locked myself in the bedroom. She started banging on the door and yelling at me, demanding I give her the phone back. I opened Instagram and saw that she was logged into that second account. I spent the next half hour shaking while going through the messages. She had been chatting with some 20-year-old guy for about 4 months. They exchanged all kinds of messages, pictures, and likely inappropriate photos. I later found those in her gallery. She even went twice to his vacation house on one mountain, supposedly with a group of his friends. I saw highlights of her posting from there in a swimsuit, surrounded by younger people. Same with a trip to another mountain. There were more conversations with other guys, but I couldn't even look further. It was too much. When I finally came out, she slapped me and said that I'd invaded her privacy. I confronted her with what I had seen, but she didn't even deny it. She just kept yelling at me for checking her phone. She started packing, called a taxi, and left with the kids to her parents' place. Since then, she hasn't answered my calls. She only sent me one short message saying that she couldn't believe I violated her privacy. Nothing about what I found, no explanation, complete avoidance. I'm left shocked and completely lost. I don't know how to proceed. Should I try to talk to her? Should I confront her again? Should I be thinking about divorce already? My main concern is our daughters. I don't want them to suffer because of this, but I also don't know how to handle a wife who does this and then acts like I'm the problem for checking. Question: if you were in my shoes, how would you handle this? What should my next step be? I am planning on getting a divorce for sure. You know, OP maybe kind of went a little overly direct. You know, you could have tried talking. Admittedly, they probably would have tried to hide the truth. I myself can't say that OP is in the wrong for what they did. It was blunt, it was direct, it was kind of a strong arm move, but they were absolutely right. So it kind of negates the whole how did they get there thing. I wish OP the best, considering they don't even want to address the elephant in the room. Divorce is kind of like the only option. Terps Nation commented, "No OP freak up detected. Your thoughts are correct. Get a divorce and fight for fair custody of the children." Her response to try and gaslight you for invading her privacy after she cheated on you in a pretty public way is disgusting. You moved across the continent to provide for your family, and she took advantage of that. She's not worth your time or energy, and you'll never be able to trust her again. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy story of how a Redditor severely messed up, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.